It's Monday, and I hope you all had a very wonderful weekend. And today I thought I would do something a little a little strange and unique. Uh, every 2 years, for many years, the Ordo Templi Orientis has had a national convention in the United States, anyway. And in 1997, uh, I was asked to give a little talk. Okay. Now, 1997, that was a long time ago, and I was a young Lon there. I was only 49 years old at the time, and I was a brash young man, and my life was a whole lot different than it is right now. I only had written a couple books at the time. But anyway, I thought I would share with you this middle-aged Lon's address that I called, carelessly, I called it Thelemic Survival in a Non-Thelemic World. And then, the title always comes months before I write a thing. So, but anyway, this is it. And I hope you'll enjoy it. Good afternoon. Before I begin, I want to read this warning. And I posted it up on a little board. And it's true. Everything I say is untrue. Though true, I try to make it. No sooner the words escape my mouth, would I had never spake it. I should preface absolutely everything I say with that little poem. First of all, let me apologize for the title of this talk, especially my use of the term non-Thelemic world. It's terribly misleading. In my opinion, on March 20th, 1904, the world turned Thelemic and is now just waiting for the rest of us to catch up. Even though the book of the law tells us, quote, "Therefore the kings of the earth shall be kings forever, the slaves shall serve," unquote. I don't believe we can simply divide the human race between those who have confessed with their mouths that they've accepted the law of Thelema and those who have not. I don't believe, as some people do, that we are at the present moment in history locked in a them against us struggle for the domination of the world. If that's the case, we're in terrible shape because, quite frankly, there is still far too much themness in each of us who consider ourselves Thelamites, and a surprisingly large amount of Thelemaness lurking just beneath the skins of many of those we would call them. How's that for English? Well, anyway, my first point is Thelamites are everywhere. Quote, "It may be that yonder beggar is a king. A king may choose his garment as he will. There is no certain test. But a beggar cannot hide his poverty." Obviously, there are many things that Thelamites in this room have in common with one another, and many things we don't have in common with other people we rub elbows with every day. For example, most people in this room have identical libraries. We know how to correctly pronounce the word Crowley. Nearly all of us delight in tormenting Jehovah's Witnesses. Most of us own at least one black robe. The first thing most of us think about when we see the Washington Monument is not George Washington. Most of us have at least one relative who thinks we're going to hell. Most of us do not own a new car. Most of us never top off our gas tanks. Most of us own at least one obscene t-shirt. Most of us say will and resh when there are other Thelamites present and don't when they are not. Also, most of us avail ourselves of the magical teachings, techniques, and disciplines of our prophet, and we embrace in our own way and according to our own understanding a pantheon of the exotic deities that personify the great cosmic facts of life. Of course, these things in and of themselves do not make us Thelamites. What differentiates us from our non-Thelemic neighbors is not the way we look, or where we live, or where we work, or how much money we make, or how we vote or make love, which separates us from the rest of humanity. It's a simple variance in attitude, and here it is. As Thelamites, we focus our spiritual attention upon ourselves instead of a deity. We seek to discover and accomplish our own will rather than the will of some god. This subtle shift of attention is what profoundly distinguishes us from the rest of humanity. And the person who has made this shift is a Thelamite, whether or not he or she has ever read the Book of the Law, or heard about Aleister Crowley, or the B666, or the OTO. It doesn't even matter what religion a person may think he or she is. One either is or is not a Thelamite. For example, very few people who consider themselves Christians care enough about the specific articles of their faith or are spiritually committed enough to actually qualify as Christians. Forget labels. As long as a person is focusing their spiritual attention upon themselves rather than a deity, as long as a person is driven to discover and accomplish their own will, rather than wasting their time trying to figure out their place in the will of some mythical god, then, in the purest sense of the word, he or she is already a Thelamite. On the other hand, even though I consider myself a Thelamite and practice all the rituals of Thelemic magic, even though I may slash my chest open every sunset and say will at McDonald's and resh on the subway, even though I may pass out copies of Liber Al at concerts and talk with Art Bell on the radio, even though I say apopantos kakodaimenos every time I see a nun, even though I'm a bigwig in the OTO, if I'm not truly focusing my energies toward discovering my will and then doing it, then I am not a Thelamite. Which brings me to my second point. Thelamites can be discovered anywhere. Quote, "Let my servants be few and secret, they shall rule the many and the known," unquote. Now, I'm sure we all consider ourselves among the servants, few and secret, unquote, who would rule the many and the known. But how many of us in our daily lives really do rule the many and the known, secretly or otherwise? Certainly not I. Each day I go to work and find myself getting royally ruled by a few and sometimes secret hierarchy of individuals of means who seem to be doing a far better job than I trampling upon the low men, dressing in fine apparel, and eating rich foods and drinking sweet wines, and if the office gossip is correct, love as they will, when, where, and with whom they will. Most importantly, these insensitive jackasses and prick-teasing prima donnas possess a one-pointed and ambiguous will to amass at least $1 million before the end of the year. And many of them are going to accomplish their wills. They may call themselves Christians or Jews or atheists, but they're not. Their God is money. And they serve and worship their deity with a devotion and a passion that would put St. Francis to shame. What's wrong with this picture? Are these people I should look down my spiritual nose upon just because their dynamic wills are currently focused on such a shallow and unspiritual goal as the accumulation of great wealth? Like probably everyone else in this room, I've dedicated my life to do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I talk about it all the time. But these jerks, without caring anything about the law of Thelema, or the book of the law, or the Hebrew Kabbalah, or tarot cards, or Enochian aethers, these assholes are actually doing what they wilt. Without ever reading the 3rd chapter, they've latched on to its essence with a vengeance and are tearing us all new ones. Now, I'm not suggesting that every workaholic, starch-searched shirt, loudmouth, cuff-linked, over-cologned, yuppie bastard, laptop, Mont Blanc, greedy, call my broker, I need to stay late, put me on hold, my people will call your people, condo, landlord, client, churning, land raping, sorry you've been downsized, backstabbing, union busting, over moose, perfume reeking, fur wrap, Starbucks clutching, cell phone, fascist, country club Nazi is a better Thelamite than I am just because he or she drives an Infiniti and orders people around all day. But we should not ignore the obvious fact that individuals like this, some of whom are actually rather cool people, because of their own natural inclinations and force and fire-charged environment of the Aeon of Horus, are already exercising aspects of personal power, already focusing their wills, already striking hard and low, and assuming blatantly Thelemic attitudes and manifesting classic Thelemic aspects of character far more effectively than we. It doesn't matter if they call themselves Christians or atheists. They don't have a clue what those words mean. It doesn't matter right now if they vote Republican or suck Pat Robertson's dick. These are proto-Thelamites who deserve our attention as much or more than members of the various modern spiritual and social subcultures. Wouldn't it be nice if a tiny percentage of these assholes could become aware that there is a name for what they are, and not a name for what they believe, but a name for what they are? Wouldn't it be nice if this awareness blossomed into an interest in what is formally known as Thelema? Wouldn't it be nice if they then focused a portion of their tremendous talent and energy of will toward their own enlightenment and the liberation of others? Wouldn't it be nice if they then channeled their energy and resources to help support their local lodge, the order, and the worldwide Thelemic movement. Which leads me to my third point, which is a question. How do we reach out to assholes and other proto-Thelamites with the glad word of Thelema? Before we try to answer that, it'll be well for us to remember that it's not everyone's will to be a Thelemic ambassador. As a matter of fact, I would strongly advise anyone who has an overwhelming desire to bring others into the fold to thoroughly examine their motives. Missionary zeal is a mask often worn by the most insincere and insecure devotee. Quote, argue not, convert not, talk not overmuch, unquote. Thelamites do not proselytize, but we are instructed, quote, to look forth upon men and tell them this glad word, unquote. If it is your will to be the bearer of the glad word to others, how do you go about it without proselytizing? Thelemic outreach must be very subtle because you don't work on other people. You work on yourself. As in magic and other aspects of our life, you have only yourself to work with. Quote, O be thou proud and mighty among men, lift up thyself, for there is none like unto thee among men or among gods, unquote. The strength of your character is the most powerful weapon you possess. Your other weapons are your wisdom, your sense of humor, your peace of mind, your relative happiness, and your emotional stability. Use the 4 powers of the Sphinx, Luke. No. You must first know who you are. You must be confident and comfortable with your life as a Thelamite and your self-identity as such. Will. You must will to be happy. Dare. You must dare to create a rich quality of life, no matter how modest your resources may be. Then, like a carrier of typhoid, you must share your happiness and your unique life with those around you. Your family, your friends, your co-workers, and believe it or not, your community. Silence. Finally, you should cultivate the self-control necessary to keep silence concerning philosophical or spiritual matters until such a time that others around you are prepared to respect anything you say. And how can you get people to respect anything you say? Not by making them think that you know more than they know, but by making them realize, even if subconsciously, that you are something more than they are. In the early 1970s, I was privileged to study for a time in Hollywood with the great method acting coach Lee Strasberg. The theory of the Stanislavski method is in essence very simple. In order for an actor's performance to be convincing, something truthful must be going on in the actor's mind. It can be anything going on inside. It doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with the play or the dialogue or even the character's emotional condition. Some emotional truth must be engaging the actor's inner life. And the truth of that engagement is visible to the soul eyes of each member of the audience, who will recognize the generic truth when they see it. The audience then interprets that truth, and then it's the audience that projects truth upon the actor's character. The supreme something that should be going on inside you is the awareness of your own will. It is the ultimate truth that should engage your inner life. When you're focused on your will, your audience of friends, co-workers, and community will see that primitive, generic truth with their soul eyes and prepare themselves to receive a message of truth through everything you say and do. Does this make sense? I've never consciously targeted anyone for Thelema assassination, but over the years I've introduced a great many people to Thelema. Some of them have gone hog wild like the rest of us and joined the OTO and the AA. Others, of course, have just gone crazy. Most of them have simply grown a little in self-realization and tolerance. In both cases, I think the world is better and the Thelemic environment better, and a Thelemic environment, a more Thelemic environment because of their conversion. No two Thelemic ambassadors can operate in exactly the same manner. Each of us has unique work and recreation environments. For many years, I've worked a modest 9-to-5 office job. But I think many of the things that I'm about to suggest could apply to just about any of us. Now I'm going to check my watch here because I've already gone almost 25 minutes. And I think I've got enough here that I'm going to continue this tomorrow. Okay. So I'm going to continue with my suggestions here about being a Thelemic ambassador in your everyday workaday world, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. Until then, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.